Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a brilliant chess battle packed with tactics, strategy, and surprises. Let's dive right in. Jason opens with d4, a calm, yet commanding first strike, staking his flag right in the heart of the battlefield. Wesley replies d5, classic symmetry, showing he's ready to fight fire with fire in the center. Jason develops his knight to f3, tightening his grip, preparing harmony among his minor pieces. Wesley answers with nf6, a precise and confident mirror, controlling key dark squares early on. Jason pushes c4, the queen's gambit spirit awakens, testing Wesley's will to hold the center. Wesley responds chicks, the Slav fortress rises, strong and unshakable like a granite wall. Jason calmly plays e3, a flexible move, securing the pawn chain and opening the bishop's path. Wesley develops his bishop to 5, bringing his light-squared bishop out before the pawn chain locks. Jason lifts his knight to c3, the pressure builds, his army now points at the heart of the board. Wesley counters with e6, closing the center with methodical precision, leaving no weakness behind. Jason surprises with qb3, his queen steps forward like a sniper, eyeing b7 and d5 in one shot. Wesley meets it with qb6, queen versus queen on the same file. Tension crackling in the air. Jason jumps with nh4, a sneaky sidestep, hunting the bishop and stirring chaos early. Wesley coolly retreats to b4, the bishop stands tall, daring the knight to prove its worth. Jason captures cxi5, breaking open the pawn chain, forcing the center to explode. Wesley trades queens with qxb3, slicing away the tension, heading into a pure battle of skill. Jason recaptures with axb3, material stays even, but his pawn structure bends dangerously. Wesley's bishop takes d5, the bishop now a spear, anchoring black's presence in the middle. Jason trades knights on d5, clarity returns, the field now open for tactical strikes. Wesley recaptures cx5, solid and purposeful, a doubled edge still controlling vital lines. Jason checks with bp5, a probing move, testing black's coordination in the open field. Wesley blocks with nfd7, cool defense, redirecting his knight to help both wings at once. Jason retreats bd2, preparing to castle long or regroup, waiting for the right time to strike. Wesley mobilizes bd6, bishops aligned, harmony restored. The counterattack is being forged. Jason slides his king to e2, strange yet safe, keeping rooks connected and plans flexible. Wesley mirrors with k7, bold king centralization, ready for endgame warfare. Jason brings rook on, doubling rooks is near. The queenside counterplay begins to awaken. Wesley pushes g5, aggression flares, the calm opening turns into fire on the king side. Jason retreats his knight to f3, pulling back under pressure, avoiding early collapse. Wesley continues g4, relentless advance. Every pawn, now, a hammer of destruction. Jason plants his knight on a1, defensive posture. A desperate stand before the storm. Wesley pushes a6, preparing b5 and space expansion. The squeeze begins. Jason's knight hops to d3, ready to block, intercept, or counter in the center. Wesley's knight moves to b6, eyes fixed on c4 and f4. Dark clouds over white's queenside. Jason positions his bishop on a4, controlling diagonals, drawing battle lines once more. Wesley calmly develops his knight to d7, tightening the coil. All pieces harmonize for the strike. Jason places his bishop on d2, retreat with purpose. Eyes shifting toward defense. Wesley's bishop drops to d6, a twin spear beside his comrade, aiming deep into enemy soil. Jason marches his king to e2, steady and brave, preparing his rooks to dominate the center. Wesley answers with k7, both kings now in the middle of the arena, ready for hand-to-hand combat. Jason activates Raccoon, rooks aligned, ready to blast down the c-file like twin cannons. Wesley replies g5, another fiery thrust. The kingside war has fully erupted. Jason's knight flees to f3, retreat again. But this knight may soon find revenge. Wesley pushes g4. The pawn storm is merciless, tearing through the barricades. Jason relocates his knight to a1, back to the wall. White prepares for a desperate stand. Wesley pushes a6, his flanks now supported. The storm gathers from both sides. Jason sets nd3, a central bastion, trying to anchor what remains of his defense. Wesley leaps nb6, poised for invasion, and his knight thirsts for the b5 or c4 outpost. Jason places b4, eyes narrowed on h6. The bishop, a sniper, waiting in shadows. Wesley positions nd7, quiet tightening before the explosion. His setup is perfect. Jason answers bd2, still holding the lines, praying for a chance to breathe. Wesley's bd6, steady and menacing. Both bishops now shimmer with lethal coordination. Eintanterin, Seisen Orden, Pension. Jason smashes n7, a violent knight thrust, checking Wesley's king and forcing a capture, while white hunts for chaos and a tactical window. Wesley answers nd7. Wesley swallows the intruder with his knight, calmly neutralizing the check and keeping black's formation solid and ready. Jason rips rx8. White's rook storms the 8th rank, zitzing an open file and ripping into black's position for desperate activity and threats. Wesley strikes b5. Black counterpunches on the queenside with a pawn push, opening lanes to blunt the rook's invasion and stir counterplay. Jason grabs Arig bites. White snatches material on bait. clawing tangible gain, and clinging to imbalance, while seeking tactical continuations in the open field. Wesley erupts e4, a brutal pawn thrust with check, driving white's king into the open, and turning the initiative toward black's relentless assault. Jason steps cat2, white's king sidles inward, fearless yet exposed, trying to stay connected with pieces, while surviving the oncoming storm. Wesley recovers an expite. Black's knight retakes on bait, restoring balance of material, and leaving his pieces poised to convert space into decisive threats. Jason returns r8. The lone rook re-enters the 8th rank, hunting perpetual motifs, or tactical chances, while clinging to the last slender hopes. Wesley centralizes k7. Wesley calmly walks his king toward the center. A bold endgame-ready move that supports his pieces and tightens the net. Jason swings right. White shifts his rook to height, probing the kingside for checks and traps as he scrambles for counterplay under pressure. Wesley reroutes n6. Black's knight repositions to a prime square, increasing control over central and queenside outposts while preparing decisive incursions. Jason pounces, rxs7, white captures on h7, ripping a pawn from black's king's shelter and momentarily exposing weaknesses to exploit. Wesley answers nb4. Wesley's knight invades b4 with menace, eyeing c2 and a2, choking off white's countermeasures and hunting tactical forks. Jason storms g4, a desperate pawn push to pry open lines and dislodge black's forces. A last gasp attempt to create complications. Wesley replies bixa4. Black's pawn smashes through on a4, capturing and creating dangerous passed pawn dreams while expanding queenside dominance. Jason recaptures bx4. White takes back with the b-pawn, trying to mend structure and cling to material while staving off the wave. Wesley pushes f5. Black's pawns roll forward like a tide, advancing queenside pressure and turning spatial advantage into concrete threats toward promotion. Jason slips kd2. White's king finds a marginal shelter on d2, attempting to coordinate defense while the battlefield compresses into lethal corridors. Wesley plants nd3. Black's knight leaps deep into white's camp, a planted spear restricting escape routes and menacing forks on b2 and cone. Jason skitters kc2. The king sidesteps again, searching for air among ruins, while every square grows ever more hostile under black's grip. Wesley delivers neonena, a venomous check jump that forces white's monarch to dance and steals vital tempos toward a crushing finale. Jason folds gonen. White's king ducks back under pressure, threading a narrow path between enemy pieces as the net tightens inexorably. Wesley blasts nf3. The knight rockets into f3, an invasive strike, dominating key squares and threatening decisive material gains or mating nets. Jason shuffles cat2. The king edges forward to help his defense, stubbornly leading his own shrift while searching for tactical reprieves. Wesley drops bb4. The bishop lands on b4, slicing diagonals and combining with the knight to frame the white king in a lethal web. Jason probes r5. The rook checks and teases from h5. A probing attempt to create back rank nuisances or sudden counterchecks. Wesley calmly steps K6. Wesley's king strides boldly toward the center. A composed, clinical general, ready to finish the squeeze. Jason throws R6, a daring checking blast to disorient and maybe snag a perpetual. Desperation fuels White's last theatrical rattle. Wesley blocks F6. Black fortifies with F6, killing the check and sealing escape routes, while keeping his formation rock solid and implacable. Jason retreats right. The rook withdraws to regroup, clinging to checks and threats as White tries to prolong the fight a little longer. Wesley repositions near 1. The knight returns powerfully to A1, dominating light squares and cutting off White's faint attempts at counterplay. Jason claws back RHX. The rook returns to H6, hunting any lingering checks or tactical skirmishes to disturb Black's perfect coordination. Wesley composes KF7. The Black king moves to F7. A safe, supportive square that readies the final compression around White's struggling monarch. Jason sparks S7 pain, another checking flare. A last gasp to force concessions and hope for an inaccuracy from the relentless opponent. Wesley coolly replies KG6. The Black king steps forward with uncanny calm, extinguishing hope and turning advantage into impending victory. Jason shuffles R5. The rook scuttles again, searching for stray checks while Black's army methodically closes off every avenue of escape. Wesley plants ND3. The knight lands on D3 with surgical precision, slicing off checks and suffocating the White king's remaining breathing space. Jason pushes B3, a pawn move to create luft and patch holes. A humble attempt to buy time against an unforgiving onslaught. Wesley springs and coneo. The knight flashes to cone with check, ripping open the last defenses and forcing White into a tightening vice. Jason tucks Gonan. The king ducks deeper into the net. A weary commander, searching for refuge among collapsing ranks. Wesley captures NXB3. Black's knight captures on B3, converting positional dominance into concrete material gains and eliminating White's fragile shelter. Jason strikes RxD5. White seizes a pawn with his rook, seeking complications and stirring tactical noise to unsettle the execution. Wesley plants ND2. The knight lands on D2 decisively, parrying threats and boxing White's rook while knitting an inescapable net. Jason races RB5. The rook hurries to B5, hunting checks, forks, or any slender tactical thread that might flip the script. Wesley answers NC4. The knight slides to C4, a dominating square that paralyzes White's final hopes and coordinates with pawns and king. Jason edges Ketu. The White king inches inward to help defense, but every step only tightens the noose that Wesley has fashioned. Wesley invades NB2. The knight storms into B2, consolidating material advantage and sealing White's fate with ironclad positional precision. Jason presses Roybite. The rook thrusts to bait in one last active plea, swinging for trades or sudden checks as a final effort. Wesley replies Ing Safur. Black's knight captures on a flower, snatching the last distracting pawn and extinguishing white's remaining tactical resources. Jason moves kf2, the last white move. A weary king step before resignation. Black's crushing coordination forces the game to end. 0-1 Dutch pain. Pace 0-1. That's it for today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.